This was the spot last night.
Nature is inherently peaceful until it is no longer so, and the most frightening moments often occur when you feel the safest, from a survival tent suddenly catching fire, to the sound of footsteps following you through a silent forest. These encounters prove that danger is always closer than you think. If your instincts tell you that you are not alone, do you stay to see what awaits? On April 19th, 2022, the YouTube channel Hannah Barron recorded an ordinary job that suddenly turned serious. On a quiet country road, Hannah and her father were towing heavy equipment across a narrow bridge with no rush and no sign of danger.
Yeah, Dad went to town, took my truck to rent a trencher, like a ditch witch, and on the way back, the trailer got to acting all funky, so he slows down, thankfully, and it comes up off the ball. It was hooked up correctly, sit down on it, all that good stuff, and broke the safety chains, dented my tailgate, and stopped in the middle of the road. And then before Daddy could get out of the truck, it rolled off the road, off a bridge, and now it's laying in a creek. There's no water or anything hardly on this road, and he found the only creek on the way home for this thing to come off the trailer. The perfect spot, come off the trailer, and the whole thing rolled off in the creek. So now we brought the Lil down here to get this thing out of the creek. You might as well laugh about it. Ooh, I got that. We're just cleaning it for you. Oh, gosh. Yeah. And you can see where it skin up the pavement when it come off the trailer. And then it just rolled down and...
Need a new one of these on here.
Yeah, because it come off right there.
Then without warning, the trailer broke free. The hitch failed. The load shifted forward, and seconds later, the equipment dropped into the creek below. The video shows what followed: scraped pavement, twisted metal, and a recovery process that required large machinery.
Good morning, y'all. Throwing in a little disclaimer here. We figured out that it was a wore out tongue on the whole trailer. So it wasn't really anything we did other than the tongue being wore out. Ended up coming off and broke the safety chains, and then dented my tailgate and busted my tail light. And I think my truck took the worst end of all of it, because the ditch witch, my dad and my cousin and some of the folks that work where we rented the ditch witch, they all got out here in the yard yesterday and drained all the water out of the oil and the gas and made sure it was still running good. And then Dad got up at daylight this morning and cut the trench for the water line that he'd rented the thing for. They just took the trencher back. They hooked it further up on the trailer so it wouldn't fishtail so bad. Hooked up more safety lines just to kind of limp it back up there to their place. Where it was hooked up was a little further back on the trailer, and it was making it fishtail even worse, which probably went into it coming off.
Later, Hannah explained the cause was not reckless driving. The failure came from parts that had worn out over time. The next day brought an update with some results turning out lucky and others proving costly. Viewers pointed out a concerning fact: even experience cannot prevent this. If it can happen during an ordinary job, how many other jobs are at risk? On October 30th, 2025, the YouTube channel The Outdoor Gear Review, known for quiet solo travel and practical outdoor testing ventures deep into Pisgah National Forest, Luke Madison, traveling alone toward Brown Mountain, stops at Wiseman's View, an overlook linked to mysterious lights reported for more than 100 years. As darkness settles over the gorge, the stillness feels intense, as though the terrain itself is being observed.
And we are off, everyone, heading towards the Wiseman's View. And here we are, everyone. We have this city far off in the distance. This certainly complicates things. So the question is, are the Brown Mountain lights from the city, lights from vehicles and whatnot? It has been studied by scientists from all around the world, and everybody seems to believe something different. I'm not sure if the camera picked that up, but I did spot a light up in the sky over those mountains over there. It was really just for a second, and then it dissipated. One thing that I find really, really interesting about the Brown Mountain Lights and all that stuff, the Cherokee Indians, they were gone before white people came into the area. But yet, the people who lived here, they saw something. They experienced something too. And to this day, there's not a good consensus of what the lights are. As you can imagine, there's all sorts of theories, including gases coming up from the forest and somehow igniting. Some say it's car lights. It's peaceful up here. Peaceful and quiet. And I'll be honest, almost a little bit eerie. Go out into the middle of nowhere, hang out on the side of a mountain all by yourself for a few hours in the darkness, and then tell me how you feel.
Wind passes through the trees, and long stretches of time go by without disturbance. Standing alone at the viewpoint, Luke notes that the silence is not calming. It feels heavy, emphasizing how exposed the location truly is.
Down below us is a massive gorge. We are right on the edge of it, on a cliff. It is massive. Certainly dangerous for those who are not prepared to go in there. There are hiking trails that go all over the place. Most of them are in pretty rough shape. It is very common for people to go missing out here. The last person that went missing that I'm aware of was a woman. That was last year or the year before. They found her vehicle at a trailhead, but she has vanished.
While looking down into the valley, he refers to a recent event. A woman entered this area and was never seen again. In a place this remote and shadowed, someone can vanish without drawing attention, with no one realizing until much later.
Originally, I was going to camp out in this parking lot, but it is so windy. Why don't we drive down the road here and let's see if we could just find a simple campsite to pull off in. Something that's more sheltered than this. I'm in for a warm night, even though it's quite cool out. The heater ran out of fuel at the same time that the alarm went off. That's perfect.
Later, he remains inside the vehicle to stay warm as temperatures continue to drop. By morning, the heater shuts off at the same moment the alarm sounds. In such conditions, heat is essential for survival. If it had failed earlier, the cold could have become dangerous before he was awake.
I mentioned last night the friend of my father's in that story. I will go ahead and tell you all that now. So when I was young, my dad, he worked at this factory with this other guy, and they became good friends. And they moved out to this area. Him and his wife, they had a daughter, and my brother and I, we would come over, hang out with them, and on occasion we would come out here to this area to do some camping and also to see if we could see the Brown Mountain Lights. Now, this couple, after their kid was grown, they separated, got divorced. He became like an official in the town that he lived in. He had a high-ranking position within the administration and all that stuff. He started dating a woman in the office. She had been divorced for 2 years. Her ex-husband, who lived in Europe, found out that she was dating some guy. He flew to the United States. He went to my dad's friend's office and shot him to death. How crazy is that? The ex-husband, the ex-wife, they hadn't spoken in 2 years. They had no connection, no relationship.
During the drive out, Luke reflects on why the site stays in his thoughts. A person who once brought him there later died suddenly. That memory now feels connected to the mountain itself. Some places quietly carry the weight of past events. Some viewers suggest aircraft satellites or military activity as explanations, while longtime residents argue the lights move where nothing should. If the causes are ordinary, why do so many people describe the same uneasy feeling, long before they know what to expect? On October 24th, 2025, the YouTube channel Campion, known for quiet solo camping and wilderness survival, recorded a night spent in a remote forest during heavy rain. Alone on soaked ground beneath tall trees, Campion worked to make the area livable and dragging gear through thick mud and setting up a large canvas tent to ride out the storm. Outside, the rain never let up. Inside, everything seemed under control. The process was careful and unhurried. The white canvas tent took shape step by step, turning an exposed clearing into a temporary shelter. Inside, the mood shifted. Rugs were placed on the floor, basic furniture was arranged, and a wood stove added heat. The sound of rain softened into the background. The space felt protected. Then the stillness ended. Without warning, a violent burst went off near the stove. The tent gave way almost immediately as flames shot upward, ripping through fabric and equipment despite the heavy rain outside. When it was over, only smoke and quiet remained. The tent was destroyed. Supplies were left burned and scattered across the forest floor. What stood out most was not the storm, but how fast one moment wiped away everything that had felt secure. Viewers pointed out that a single misjudgment, not the weather, nearly turned safety into disaster. If survival can depend on timing alone, how often does danger stay hidden until it is too late? Will's Whereabouts is a YouTube channel centered on stealth camping van life and minimalist outdoor travel, often capturing quiet nights spent living simply in remote or semi-remote settings. On January 10th, 2019, Will establishes a stealth camp at Box Hill in Surrey, a well-known area for woodland paths, walkers, and daytime activity. For this outing, he parks his vehicle along the forest edge of a public car park and prepares dinner before shifting into his overnight arrangement.
Do you want a hot chocolate? Okay. Is that enough for two? Oh! Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I'll cut these onions up, boy.
I don't really like this smoky barbecue one.
The chicken in there.
You never fill them up enough either. Fill it up.
Nah, that'll do. Bit of queso, fromage on top.
Absolutely freezing cold. That first bite.
Whoa! I think this will do for tonight's stealth camping. Freezing cold! Tonight's setup, as it always is, always the same from now on. I'm literally parked as far back into the forest as I can. There's a few other cars in this National Trust car park. Apparently right now it's 3 degrees, but as of 3, 4, 5, 6 in the morning, that will definitely be the coldest night that I've spent in the car so far. Time to lock this front door. The only door that isn't locked is the boot, because I can't lock it. What I will do before I go to sleep is crack the windows open just to get a bit of airflow. Oh, lovely stuff. Feels very, very comfortable. I don't know why, it just feels different, and I feel pretty safe here, even though there are a few hooligans about in their cars. I've decided to put my gas portable stove just sitting on the boxes. I'm going to spark it up and get a bit of nice warm air to come through. For sure, I'll turn it on just to heat it up. Don't worry, windows are slightly open, carbon monoxide alarm is working, so hopefully I should wake up in the morning.
Even though several other cars are nearby, the scene stays mostly still as darkness settles. Will locks up and rests while the surrounding woods grow silent.
I don't think I'm going to be getting much sleep tonight. There are people about 100 meters away, blazing music out, and some people screaming. Wish me luck, everybody. Morning, guys. You probably wouldn't believe that it is actually 7:30. Let's have a look what the outside world looks like. Nobody in the car park. The sun is just starting to come up. This was the spot last night. A really good night's sleep, you know, considering for the first half an hour, 45 minutes, there was all those kids blazing out music and doing donuts.
Hours later, the calm is broken when distant disturbing sounds travel through the forest. Loud human-like cries and layered voices that seem to drift between the trees. No people are visible, and the source cannot be identified, intensified by the darkness and the way sound carries in wooded areas. Although Box Hill's easy access suggests other late-night visitors may be present, the force and isolation of the noises create discomfort. Forest can bend direction and distance, making ordinary activity feel dangerous when unseen. But if unfamiliar voices suddenly rise nearby while you are alone and enclosed, how would you decide whether it is harmless human behavior or a sign that staying put involves real danger? Wildcat Adventures is a UK-based outdoor channel centered on wild camping and immersive travel. On January 12th, 2026, the creator reaches Hotwater Beach on New Zealand's Coromandel Peninsula, a location known for geothermal heat lying just beneath the sand. When she arrives, the shoreline is already busy, and as she digs into the sand, she immediately feels strong warmth with hot water seeping up from below.
That's so cool. We're gonna go for a swim. Oh, and I found a nice volcanic stone as well. Apparently this big volcano. Let's go for a swim in a warm lake. It's warm. It's a bit cooler there. Does wild swimming get any better than this? That was the best wild swim I've ever had. Water was just like being in a bath. You've got the blue skies and the gently lapping waves and the tropical vibes. Oh, my tent's a bit damp. Sure it'll dry out in this wind.
She notices volcanic rocks nearby and steam drifting around her while getting ready to swim along the naturally heated stretch of beach. Once in the water, steam rises around her as a cool ocean air, and steady waves contrast with the hot pool, forming an unusual scene, shaped by the area's rare geology. After swimming, she heads to a nearby campsite to set up for the night, expecting a quiet, wild camping spot. Instead, other campers show up and place their tent directly behind hers, breaking any sense of privacy and forcing her to relocate to avoid conflict.
So we're moving because these guys have just turned up. Apparently they booked that campsite a couple of months ago. I have actually booked this particular spot. So I guess I've only got myself to blame. And they just put themselves right behind me. Literally, you'd be able to hear them snoring and farting, and they had 2 babies as well. So I've relocated. Time's about 10 o'clock. Pretty knackered, very chilled. I'm gonna go to sleep. Go for a little early morning swim. Why not? Attempted to fix my leaking air mat last night. Semi-effective. I had to blow it up a couple of times in the night. So the bit that's leaking is just underneath the valve. I've kind of tried to patch it up as best as I can. Clearly quite badly. It's not sticking very well. I'm hoping, being that it's a valve issue, that Exped will sort me out, because it's not a puncture that I've done. The weird thing with camping here is the ground underneath the tent is warm. You know, when you sit down on somewhere where somebody else has just been sitting, and it's like, oh, you've warmed it up for me. Kind of weird to think I'm that close to volcanic activity and the whole place could just go kaboom.
As night settles in, a slow leak near the air mattress valve requires repeated reinflation, interrupting her sleep. Lying inside the tent, she stays aware of the heat coming up from the ground beneath her, close to active geothermal zones, adding a mild sense of unease to an otherwise calm night outdoors. Geothermal beaches can be remarkable, but they also require care and adaptability, since crowds and equipment issues can quickly change plans. Even without real danger, the contrast between a rare natural swim and a restless campsite shows how unpredictable wild travel can be. At what point would the trade-off stop feeling worthwhile? City Boy is a creator recognized for immersive solo journeys that record winter camping and survival in remote woodland settings. On January 11th, 2026, he sets up camp at a secluded winter forest location in Japan, expecting only a peaceful night without realizing how tense the situation would soon become. Before settling down, he leaves the vehicle to walk toward a distant restroom. The forest is almost completely quiet, broken only by soft background sounds from a nearby river and occasional wildlife, while darkness closes in and each step crackles over leaves and branches. As he moves farther between the trees, the feeling of isolation grows stronger. Then he starts to notice footsteps behind him. At first, he tries to explain the noise as imagination or natural movement, but it continues steady, purposeful, and drawing closer. Anxiety builds as he briefly loses his sense of direction. Rather than turning back, he quickens his pace, concentrating on reaching the car. The footsteps follow until he gets inside the vehicle, stopping suddenly the instant he closes the door. The tension reaches its peak, there heightened by the cold, the darkness, and the sense of being tracked. Back at the car, he chooses to rest and wait through the night. By morning, he packs up, tidies the campsite, and leaves the forest, though the memory of the previous night remains vivid. Moments like this show how silence, darkness, and isolation can magnify fear even without a visible threat. Yet, if footsteps trail you through a quiet forest, how can you tell when it is only imagination and when it is time to go? This video comes from Exploring with Bear, a US-based adventure and paranormal channel that investigates remote and tragic locations in real time. On January 13th, 2026, Bear walks alone along a snow-covered forest trail, returning to a campsite where a man named Justin died from exposure. Not knowing the place would no longer appear the same.
Another cool find on that Randonautica adventure was this owl, wooden owl, and it had letters on the back.
Man, it's freezing right now. Look, what is it? Is that a blanket? Or a coat. Oh, look. The dog muzzle that we found last time, it was in the weeds over here. It is now up high in the trees over here. That is interesting.
That's pretty high in the trees. So somebody moved the dog muzzle.
The winter scenery is quiet and gray, strengthening the sense of isolation as Bear follows the path of an earlier Randonautica trip, remembering the personal belongings once scattered along the route. As he gets closer, small but disturbing differences become clear. A dog muzzle that had been lying on the ground is now hanging high in a tree, implying that someone has visited since his previous stop.
Ooh, I see it. I see the tent. I can tell already the bike is gone or been moved.
Hello? I just heard footsteps over here. That was 100% footsteps on the trail. I see somebody walking. Okay, well now, haven't heard nobody for a few minutes. Let's make our way back to where Justin was found. Everybody all right? The bike is gone. The medicine's gone. The tent is zipped back up.
That was zipped back up.
Man, I hope there isn't somebody else frozen in here. Okay, things have changed. Somebody's still using it. Man, it stinks in there. I almost forgot about the jawbone. It's still there.
Tent was zipped up. There was a little gas can that's been put back up on the inside. Man, that is super duper creepy in itself. That tent is still being used.
At the campsite, Justin's tent is closed again. Medicine that had been left inside is gone, and new objects, including a gas container and a jawbone, are discovered nearby. A bicycle seen before has disappeared, adding to the feeling that the area is still being disturbed. The mix of recent changes and the known death creates a heavy blend of sadness and unease, intensified by the stark, snowy surroundings. Sites connected to tragedy often pull people back, leaving new signs that prevent them from feeling at rest. Bear leaves aware that the location remains uncertain and may require another visit with assistance. But when places change, how do you tell the difference?
That's it for tonight. Which moment creeped you out the most? Drop it in the comments. Have your own story? Share it with us, and stay tuned. The next one is even darker.